Okay.
Busy summer and busy fall? A little bit?
Very busy summer and fall.
Yeah. So I've got 2 or 3 big topics I want to get at. One is, let's start with the strategic plan.
Okay.
I think most people may know, but some folks don't. I think we started this process back in late 2018, and then is that right?
We had the first planning meeting that started with a retreat in Greensboro, January 17th.
That was 19, I think.
Huh?
I wasn't here in 17.
January 17th of this year.
You're correct. And then I think we've done a community day and some engagement with the board as well as theme teams.
That's right.
Coming out of the last board meeting, I think we've extended that process for the next board meeting for it to be ratified and voted on.
Well, actually, I'm going to be talking to the chairman of the board that when we come to the January meeting, we'll essentially update the board on where we are and not bring it to the board for a vote of approval until the April meeting. And that's in response to some feedback that we've gotten that not enough of the community has had a chance to have input. And one of the things that I want this to be is a plan that the community understands, and that's not the president's plan. What happens with a lot of strategic plans is a big glossy document is made, and it's basically the board's and the president's, and nobody else even knows that it exists or what's in it. And for what we have to do to take Morehouse to the next level, we need some guideposts that everyone can anchor themselves in as they make choices about how to move us forward. So that's where we are. And I don't anticipate that that Willie Woods, the chair, or the board is going to force us to vote if, in my opinion, the community's not ready. So that's where we're at.
Okay, so it sounds like we'll re-engage the broader community between now and then.
Say that again?
It sounds like we're going to engage a little bit more broadly.
Yeah, we're going to engage.
Right.
In particular, we want to engage a broader group of faculty. Some feedback that we got from some faculty was that faculty were not as engaged in this process as they could have been or now would like to be. Right? And this also gives us an opportunity to begin to socialize some of the ideas that have already emerged as sort of big ideas that we would anchor the plan in.
So you kind of touched on it in terms of broader engagement, but I think you and I talked at that retreat when it was during a break, and you told me it's like, the wrong way to go about this is 4 people go in a room and knock out a plan. Right. Looking back now at the last 9 or 10 months, is there anything you look back at and go, I know I personally learned a lot in this process, that you can look back and go, we could have, should have done differently, or that you've learned through 9 or 10 months of this process here?
I think we might have educated the community more broadly about where the college is and what its strengths and weaknesses are. Okay. Probably. The other thing, I actually had a conversation this morning, and I think I might have thought about 2 parallel tracks of discussion where the faculty would engage around it, the staff would engage around it, and then we would bring that together. I think what we tried to do was have, with our theme teams, we had both faculty and staff together. And my observation is that in some theme teams, that was just difficult because they were, if you will, you were bringing together thought worlds. And the faculty thought world is different in some critical dimensions than the staff thought world. And The last thing is for the theme teams, I might have brought in professional facilitation.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a theme team chair, and the logistics of managing that through the summer, in addition to what I do regularly, was difficult.
Yeah,
And-
yeah. So I think that
Yeah.
puts some burden on the theme team leaders with lots of other things happening. And I think some professional facilitation likely would have helped it.
Interesting. So one of the things, it wasn't necessarily in the theme team I was involved with. I think other ones had the screens, the themes are behind us. Big themes, there's big ideas come out of this, like Morehouse Beyond Borders, Morehouse certificate programs, all of which are new business models that, prospectively give us new revenue. How do you foresee, once this plan is in place, financing or putting organization under this new world?
So what I tried to do, in the process that we chose was to have us separate out the things we have to fix in the near term, which we know we have to address. So we know we've got a budget challenge. We know we've got a set of deferred maintenance challenges, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what the plan is designed to do is guide people in their entrepreneurial or intrapreneurial activities so that they wind up being consistent with where we're trying to take the plan. It will also guide us in investing whatever resources we are able to garner. And the good news is that there's lots of evidence out there that the college has a momentum going and people want to invest in it. I was just with the head of the Carnegie Foundation. The Carnegie Foundation just gave us $1 million, and he's been following very closely what's happening here and has already told me to come back and talk to him about what, the critical needs of the college are when we get finished with our strategic plan. And that's true as well. Robert Smith gave us a gift, and some of our folks worked with his team this summer to execute that gift. And they were so impressed at how we executed that now Keith Schultz, who works very closely with Robert, is deeply engaged in conversation with us about what does Morehouse need to go to the next level and opening up their doors to other people to help move the school along. And from that will come resources that we then can direct to these strategic priorities. What we also will have to do on some things is reallocate resources from where they're currently focused to focus on the development of some of these things in particular that are going to bring new streams of revenue. And one of the things that's very clear about the business model for small liberal arts colleges that have only been in the business of giving out bachelors is private especially, is that the business model is challenged. We can no longer depend purely on tuition and fundraising. We've got to develop new streams of revenue. Gerald Hector has been leading a set of discussions about public-private partnerships. We've got, Andre Bertrand, who's been looking at our master planning for the campus, but also giving thought to how we develop some of the properties around the college. So we may be cash poor, but one could argue that we're land rich, and how we turn that into new streams of revenue that allow us to subsidize our core business, which will, in my view, always be our residential college, and also invest in new things. And it won't happen overnight, but what the strategic plan will do is give us the guideposts for those moments where we do have resources to invest, those moments where we can be purely opportunistic and jump on those opportunities so we're not going at cross purposes.
So it sounds like April, May is going to be busy in terms of announcing a lot of organizational changes and new business models or things to support the new business model. But I kind of want to stay in the current because this is recent news within the community, and that is you and Gerald Hector have communicated over the last few months about the cost cuts, and we recently enacted the furloughs and then rescinded them. It's something I think the ELT and Gerald and I talk about, the rest of the leadership team. What went on in that decision-making process?
It was pretty straightforward. Based on what I knew about where the college was financially, or what I know about where it is financially, and how we got there, which was through, in my view, a set of decisions and indecisions and shortcuts, that we found ourselves having a cash flow problem that we were sort of papering over with the fact that we had a credit line available to us, but we were really treating it as if it was new revenue. And we need to pull ourselves out of that. That's about a $5 million gap. I thought that by going the route of furloughs and not fully funding the benefit of the 403, I think it's 403B or whichever one it is, that we would be giving ourselves some runway so that by the time we got to the end of this academic year, we wouldn't be in as bad a position as we'd been in at the start of this year. And we'd be putting our foot on the gas around some of these other ways that we might bring in alternative revenue and cut, right? I then learned that in response to that, the faculty council had advocated the faculty walking out. And we, I thought, had been in a motion of positive momentum. Oprah had just come, given us $13 million. That was unplanned. She touched the place. We'd had 2 other donors who are billionaires come to the college, touch the place, and each one made a 7-figure commitment. They wanted to stay anonymous. But those were relationships that were developing. And the reputational risk, I became convinced by conversations with some of you that the reputational risk of having the faculty walk out and the headlines that would create would raise for some people a fundamental question that people had 3 years ago when John Wilson was asked to leave, which is, does Morehouse have its act together? Or are they at war with themselves? And I thought that would undermine that momentum, and the risk associated with not taking the furloughs was the better risk to take, because what that gives us time to do is strategically look at our cost structure, and if we have to make hard decisions about things to cut, we'll understand that much better than we would have understood it in June, which was when Gerald showed up and identified that we had the cash flow problem. And we'll be able to make some hard decisions, but ones that will be more sure are in the best interests of the college. But, as I said in the letter that I sent to the community, that choice makes us more vulnerable to not being in a better position at the end of the year than we were. I think we will be in a better position, but we'll be in a less better position than we would have been had we stayed with the furloughs. And, it's an interesting thing when you have to make these kinds of decisions because, my first reaction was, if this is what I think is the best decision. Faculty want to walk out. I can't do anything about it. And then I pulled myself back and just asked the question, what's in the best interest of the school, right? If I think about the worst case happening, if we had had those headlines that sent us backwards and that momentum and people wanting to invest in the school pulled away, is that worse than if I find myself at the end of this academic year having to now make some strategic cuts that will be painful, but we won't do another furlough?
Right.
So
I'm going to pivot from there because I'm sure at the end for the Q&A this will get some questions on it. But there's other things other than financials that we addressed over the summer into early fall in the public safety, physical safety, as well as sexual misconduct space. Those made headlines in addition to Robert Smith, if everybody read the paper over the summer. I think a lot goes unsaid or unreported on those fronts in terms of what we've done organizationally in multiple offices to help us respond to those safety issues more quickly and effectively. I'd love it if you could kind of go into some of those details with a broader community here.
yeah, so the frame that I've tried to work on these issues from is the frame of psychological and physical safety. Now, part of that is work we've done to try and shore up our Title IX work. We've now brought in a new Title IX coordinator and director.
Keith Cobbs.
Keith Cobb. Where are you, Keith? Can you stand up?
Welcome.
Okay, great. So Keith's here. Keith's been working, trying to bring the momentum back to that area. We're rolling out training as well, and I think as important, Maurice Washington and I have been in a dialogue about how do we make sure that we're affecting the culture of our young men so that we're not just responding to incidents after they happen, but really focusing on the culture. And, you guys can't see it, but what this represents is an entire schedule of activities that we're engaged in with our students to go at this issue from multiple vantage points, from the usual required training that students have to take on these issues, but also bringing in discussions of things like the dynamics of domination that often go along with masculine cultures. Requiring every student leader in activities like NSO to have to go through some deep training about how do you manage these issues. What does it mean not to be a bystander, right? And that's really about trying to address the culture. And what I will say is we see very clear evidence that our students are starting to talk to us about things that they see that don't feel comfortable before there's an incident, but simply, kind of putting it on our screen. And that's a change in the culture that we've noticed, and similarly with staff. Staff really taking seriously the obligation to report things and send it up the chain. So that's some of the work that we're doing.
And I'll promote a little bit of the work I'm doing with Keith and also Maurice. My office will be communicating. You all start to get those types of flyers at your desk, because I think that's one thing I saw when I got here. All these discrete things were happening, but we also need to do a better job promoting their works to the community in addition to this discussion.
Yeah, let me just say something, too, on the physical safety side, because we're paying close attention to that. We've done some things to change our staffing. So, for example, we heard very clearly that the north end of our campus is more vulnerable. That's where Purdue and the suites are. Now we have coverage, security coverage in those buildings. We think it's making a difference. We had problems that we see less evidence of with students leaving doors open. We're communicating, Maurice and his folks in housing, I think, are communicating very clearly. We've also changed our patrol patterns, our outside patrol patterns to address that. This afternoon, I'm meeting with Ty Green, who's the executive director for the AUC, because the AUC has engaged the Atlanta Police Foundation in studying the security of all 4 campuses, and now we're looking at ways to work together more closely, perhaps even integrating all or some aspects of our police forces so that we can have better deployments. The last thing I'll say about this is around both issues of physical safety and psychological safety, and that's the way I think about things like sexual harassment that's not physical, you know, or bullying that's
Right.
not physical. We're trying to send the message that this is a zero-tolerance culture. Also for staff, the message that it's not simply a matter of whether legally you did anything, but we're hired here to work with these young men because we're expected to show good judgment. And we've had some moments where it might have been fuzzy whether someone stepped over the line, but where the judgment was just bad. That put someone in that position where they couldn't read what the true intent was. You know, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and you invite a student to come meet you in your office. Bad judgment. Right? We're going to hold people accountable for judgment as well when it comes to the young men in our community who we owe our best, and to each other who we owe our best.
So I'm getting the sign that we're over time, but I don't want to end on that. I want to end on, so you're going to have to go quicker next, right? I'm eating into your time, I'm sorry. Because
I apologize, I know.
No.
They're just hankering to get up here.
That's what you get for going second. Is 30 seconds, what's going in, this is coming your 3rd full year at Morehouse.
Nope. I'm ending my second
Ending your
full
second,
year.
going into the next year.
Going in January.
Top 2 things that have to happen to make next year, you know, a huge success for you.
Top 2 things. We have got to see improvement in our financial picture, and from multiple fronts, from everything from how we manage to our tuition discount rate, to developing new partnerships and streams of revenue, and increasing our fundraising, and you'll hear a little bit later from Monique about that. I think that there's evidence that we've got positive momentum to get to that. And the second is to reverse the sense that there is a lack of trust in our community, in particular, the concerns that raise that from our faculty. And I've been meeting in one-on-one sessions with faculty to get their perspective, not as a group, but individual perspectives to think about how we can engage. That's one reason for slowing down the strategic planning process. But if at the end of next year I can have addressed that and find us in a much better position when it comes to the relationship between staff and faculty, administration and faculty, I think at the end of my 3rd year, Morehouse will be on a path that will surprise lots of people in terms of where we can go.
I think that's a good segue off to Dr. Hodge and Dr. Howard in terms of the academic stuff at Paris. Well, welcome you guys to the stage. Thanks, Dr. Thomas.
So I'd like to thank Dr. Howard for joining us this afternoon. I am Michael Hodge. I am the Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs and Provost. Dr. Howard?
Dean of Faculty and Associate Provost for Faculty Affairs.
So we're going to get right into it. Basically, I want to ask Dr. Howard some questions to kind of give an idea of what's been going on in academic affairs, particularly around restructuring and innovation in the Academic Affairs Office. So I have a few questions for him, and I will try to make up the time for you, Monique, so she can talk about how we're going to pay for all this stuff I'm going to talk about right now. What do you see, Dr. Howard, as coming out of the restructuring in terms of innovation?
So in terms of innovation, let me back up for a second and just talk about the need. HBCUs in general are undergoing quite a bit of duress. Morehouse is not immune to that. And one of our big challenges has been in the area of student enrollment, particularly those students who can afford our price tag. And so students have options. Students have options. And so one of the things I've continually talked about is this sense of urgency to evolve, to improve, to become excellent, more excellent. And so technology is one of the things that I know, that we know, that this particular generation of students that we service are quite involved in. That's what they appreciate. So some of the things that we're planning to do is to use this new structure to use the brain trust of the faculty to come up with new programs, new initiatives that will attract students. One of the things I frequently ask is, what is the compelling reason for a student to come to Morehouse as opposed to one of our other metro institutions? And so we have to think about it in that context. What will give us that competitive advantage?
So you talk about the competitive advantage. How do you see that coming to play in this restructuring? It's like they put it up on the slide back here. You know, this competitiveness you talk about. How is this going to help with student competitiveness?
So I just want to talk about the changes in the structure. Typically, most institutions will have academic departments, sometimes of one singular major, a department chair. And so if you look at how that structure is set, you can say that it's somewhat siloed. What we're actually looking for and the direction of higher ed is into this idea of interdisciplinarity. That is disciplines that are sort of cross-feeding one another, whether you're talking about biology, chemistry, biology, physics, biology, music, which would be, you might think is somewhat unusual, but we know that those scientists who are musically inclined tend to be the best researchers.
Do we have any examples of that?
So one example, Dr. Aaron Carter-Enye. And so he's a professor in the Department of Music, but he's also embracing technology and science in this idea of the digital humanities. And so currently he's on leave. He actually has a Fulbright where he's doing some of this work in Ghana, West Africa.
So how does this restructured thing we've got going on back here impact students? Right? So you got all these, we used to only have 3 divisions. Now we got 7. How does that impact students?
So let me tell you about the basic tenets of this restructuring. So as Dr. Hodge mentioned, we had 3 divisions, humanities, science and math, the visual arts. And so basically what we've done is to remove the departmental designations, right? So we've removed that designation, and we had a task force of faculty called ART, the Academic Restructuring Task Force. And so what they did was look at all of the majors and sort of rearrange them into those that would complement one another best in this idea of interdisciplinarity. So if you will see, we have 7 divisions, life sciences, for example, biology, kinesiology, psychology, and chemistry. So essentially what we've done is sort of flatten out the divisional structure, expand it from 3 to 7, remove the departmental designations, and the question is why? It goes back to this idea of departments being somewhat insular and monolithic. What we're trying to do is to encourage that interaction between faculty of different disciplines that will come up with new programs that will attract students. Now, we anticipated that this process may take some time, but we have to move. So we've developed a 7th division called ELLIS, Experiential Learning and Interdisciplinary Studies. And so I often refer to this as the risk-taking or reasonable risk-taking division. And so the charge of that division is actually to look at the higher ed landscape and to introduce new programs that are recently developed, that are new, that are novel, and bring them to the college. Pilot them, and if there is sufficient student interest, then they can be incorporated in the other divisions as a new major or program.
Our EVP, Chief Financial Officer, has told us that we have some cash flow problems.
Right.
And this seems kind of expensive. How are some of these things within all this interdisciplinarity going to be funded? What's the strategy to get funding for some of this stuff?
Well, first, let me say that we did not use new money in developing this strategy, this structure. So really what you see...
How is that possible?
Reallocation.
Of what?
Reallocation of the existing personnel costs associated with department chairs and program directors. So simply what we've done was to reallocate that so that each of these majors, most without exception, has what's called an academic program director. This is a faculty member who is in intimate contact with the students. In fact, they serve as a point of contact. So even though we're doing all of this shuffling around, that every major is represented at the table. We also have what are called, division chairs overseeing each of these majors and the faculty within these majors. So the idea, at least as what I'm thinking about, is that essentially what we're doing is futuring the college, right? ensuring its continued viability through innovation, the generation of new programs that will hopefully attract students, new students who may not have considered Morehouse, and that serves as a source of revenue. But the other thing is that in this 7th division, we realize that often if you think about a department, you sort of box students in, right? You're a history major, you're an art major, you're this, you're that. But we know that students have multiple interests that are actually interdisciplinary. So what about having students come in and design their own curriculum, right? And so that's fairly new, a new concept. And that's one of the things that we're hoping to achieve with this particular division. We also have a new major, software engineering, right? And so that's generating a lot of buzz amongst the students.
So you didn't answer the question about money.
Okay.
So,
Should I leave that to you?
good turn. I want to talk about the division chairs and what they're going to do to raise money.
Right. So we looked at the responsibilities of division chairs very carefully. And one of the things that we decided was that they need to be actively recruiting students. They also need to engage in fundraising. And so to that end, they've been engaged in some training sessions with admissions and recruitment, as well as OIA. Some of the division chairs are already going out recruiting as they travel to conferences and the like. So.
Okay. So what I want to ask you now is, what do you see as the future of classrooms that is connected to our restructuring?
So
you mentioned technology,
right.
You mentioned all that stuff.
So I really do see a strong infusion of technology. I think there are a couple of things that have to happen. Number one, we really want to engage our faculty in development activities, ensuring that they're able to grow, but they also understand this new generation of students, which is what, Gen Z or, right?
Okay.
Okay. And so we want that. The other thing is that we want to make sure that the technology that we're offering is state-of-the-art, cutting edge. And so I'd like to show a short clip of one of the pieces of technology that we're planning to integrate. And when I talk about technology, many of you probably already know I'm a scientist, and so I think about this life sciences, but not only in the life sciences, but also humanities, as well as the creative and performing arts. And so what you're looking at, or will be seeing here, is what's called HoloLens. Many of our students are interested in medicine. They come here, they know they want to be a doctor, right? And if you go up to some of the labs, one of the things they like doing is cutting, right? So some of you may remember the fetal pig and, and so forth in biology. That's sort of messy. And we don't really have access to cadavers and things like that at the med school at this point. So we can actually teach physiology, anatomy, using this system. This is mixed virtual reality. Mixed virtual reality. So students are able to see structures in front of them. They're able to turn them around, pull them apart. The instructor is able to see what's going on as well. And so, can we show this?
I am. Hi, Pam. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our new classroom. This is our new system that allows me to teach and interact with you even though I'm not there at build. I'll tell you, this feels really natural. The three of us can see each other as we're talking, which makes us feel connected. And even though you can only see my head and hands, you get a sense of my body language. This is really changing what it means to be in class.
Mark, let's show them the white matter tracts. These tracts act like superhighways, allowing messages to travel from one part of the brain to another. This example comes from an MRI scan of a real patient from the laboratory of Professor Cameron McIntyre at Case Western Reserve University.
It's critical that our students know how these structures relate to one another. I can tell you I've looked at data sets like this for over 10 years, and I never fully understood their 3D structure until I saw them in HoloLens. Let's say we have a patient with a brain tumor, which we're showing here with this red area. Hey, Jeff and Henry, can you see how this tumor intersects the light blue tract, but not the green tract or the yellow one? This allows us to predict the impact of this tumor on the patient's symptoms and their outcomes after surgery.
This could impact the occipital lobe back here.
Thank you.
And so this is one of the tools, HoloLens, and we have another tool called Lapster, and so that's currently in use. So that's virtual reality, a little bit different, but you get similar results.
Thank you very much. And now I will ask Jose to come back.
Thanks, Dr. Hodge. With that, I'd love to invite our VP for Advancement, Monique Dozier.
Hello, everyone. So you know, I get excited talking about money. So if I get a little animated up here, as long as I don't fall off the stage, I think I'll be okay. So what I was asked to do was to kind of give a comparison as to how we ended last fiscal year in terms of fundraising, where we are to date, and then some of the new initiatives that we're bringing to bear. So we ended our fundraising year strong. Our goal was $18 million. We ended almost at $20 million in fundraising support. We had 6 $1 million plus gifts, 16 $100,000 plus gifts. We had our most successful Giving Tuesday day ever at $226,000 raised, which put us at the leaders board amongst the HBCUs. We sold 503 chapel chairs, and our cost to raise $1 was 11 cents. The industry average is 13 cents. So when Dr. Thomas talks about momentum, we have momentum, but that gets even better. I didn't do that. There it is, okay. So to date, from July 1 to date, we are at $41,485,000 in fundraising totals. That is inclusive of Robert Smith's gift, but exclusive of Oprah. So what that means is we have a goal this year of $25 million. I'll show you our goals. We will exceed our goal, with no doubt. We have 100 already to date, 100, this is not working right for me. 100,000 plus gifts. We've raised 925,000 in unrestricted giving. We have 836 alumni donors, 20 pending proposals. Pending means we have made these asks and we're waiting for a decision tree of $143 million, and 3 upcoming proposals that we haven't asked for yet, but they're in our queue for a total of a little over $30 billion. I will tell you, those pending proposals are all because of our faculty. It's about you. For the first time ever, we submitted a $100 million proposal to a foundation for the Andrew Young Center. We've made it to the 3rd round. So my philosophy is let them tell us no, but never tell ourselves no. Because this is the 4th time MacArthur has put this out here and Morehouse College has never gone for it. Let them tell us no, but never tell ourselves no. Our goal for this year is to raise $25 million, which is above the $18 million from last year. This will be recalibrated based upon the Smith gift. So to me, this is on top of the Smith gift, not with the Smith gift, but it does include Oprah. $3 million in unrestricted support for the college. We hover around $2 million right now. $15 million in scholarships, which we've already exceeded with Oprah's gift, so we'll recalibrate that as well. $7 million in programmatic support for the college. And again, we're going to exceed this. This is capital campaign dollar readiness, okay? In order for Morehouse to go into our ambitious $500 million campaign, we need to be raising $50 million a year. Not 1 year, but we're on a good start, but every year. Make sense? Any questions for me? Okay. Some of our new initiatives, annual giving. We are trying to move that alumni giving needle to 25% this year. It's at hovers around 13% right now. That's 4,750 donors. We are already pacing ahead of last year thanks to the good work between our office, the Alumni Association, and Alumni Relations. So we are pacing ahead of last year. We should achieve this goal. We have a $3 million again for current support. That includes $2 million unrestricted and $1 million for scholarships. We are pacing ahead. We've established what's called Cafe Tuesday. We've brought our telemarketing program back in-house where students, faculty, staff, et cetera, and alumni make calls on a given Tuesday every month in support of the college. We've already exceeded what we raised last year to professional firm. We are also doing, again, the National Day of Giving, which is December 3rd this year. 226 last year. Our goal this year is $500,000. We've started an ambassadors program. My director of annual giving, Josh, please stand. Didn't know you were in the room, but I'm glad you are. We started an ambassadors program where we are, again, having students work on the college's behalf, alumni work on the college's behalf, whether it be in the local market or national, as well as faculty and staff and friends. Basically, what we're doing is putting the test to ourselves on our ability to raise money, as opposed to professional folks doing it on our behalf. We've also started a planned giving council. We have 10 alumni and professionals in this business who have joined this council to help us build out awareness for legacy gifts. Those are your planned gifts. Those are your wills, your trusts, your annuities, building out the sustainability of the college's future asset base. We've created an educational series that will be launched after the first of the year, where we'll have some webinars and marketing automation. And our goal is to raise $1 million in new planned gifts on behalf of the college. I'll also let you know that as a part of being on this council, each of those members are required to make a planned gift to the college. So they are too investing in the college. Technology landscape is changing for advancement here at Morehouse College. Some of the challenges, I'm sure you've all not only expressed them with me, but maybe even felt, is we didn't really have a single source of constituent management relationship tools here. We have about 5 or 6 ways in which we manage alumni and donors at Morehouse College. We have no way to do digital marketing automation without the labor-intensive bare hands of all of us who have to perform this work. Email marketing was decentralized. Gift processing lags behind the customer experience. What do I mean by that? If every gift has to be touched by 5 people, getting that receipt out to that donor, and that acknowledgement out to that donor, that communication out to that donor is a lag, because everything had to be touched by several different offices to achieve that goal. Analytics doesn't even exist. So we can't even study our consumer-based impressions and interests to be able to better inform and or better engage them in the life of the college. And lack of common platforms makes technology very hard to manage. So we have, thanks to Dr. Thomas and our Title III partners, procured Salesforce. We kicked off this project a couple of weeks ago, but as you can see, and the blue bubble means that that's the data ecosystem, that's the data hub. We will be able to perform all of these engagements, analytics, and operations with one data integration strategy across all our various offices for alumni engagement. That means marketing automation, social engagement, event management, prospecting, stewardship, one payment gateway and processor versus multiple. Donors and alumni will have portals where they can go self-serve themselves and set their preferences for communication. They can get their receipts directly there. They'll be housed there. If they lose the receipt, need to get another copy. that we set their preferences, and we'll spend more of our time making sure that we're meeting their preferences with the integration of the tools versus manually trying to handle everyone's individual needs. We anticipate the full suite of capabilities being available by June, because it's a very aggressive plan for us, but we'll be first starting with the data integration strategy and be complete by February, March. I've done this before at other institutions. It can take you up to 2 years. Since we aren't maximizing what we have right now, I'm confident we can deliver on time, in scope, and definitely within budget. We will completely be sunsetting some of the ancillary tools by June 2020. Yes. And it already comes mobile enabled, so we don't have to do anything special there. The first thing we're going to do is replace the MASH database by February, which will be accomplished. So, and just so you know, Salesforce is an ecosystem. So although I'm just showing you what's on our current wheel, we can also invest in other platforms within the ecosystem that's still married to this one data model. There will be no more manual pushing and pulling of information.
Thank you. Hello, Mr. President and staff. I thank you all for being so transparent and telling us what we need to know. I was wondering about the schedule of activities for the students, the sheet that you hung up. Will that be made available online or sent to us in the community?
Maurice?
Absolutely, I have one too. So we'll get it out to the community this week. I mean, it's available.
Okay, and my purpose is just so that we are a community, and if we all know, then I can encourage this student or that student to attend. And I'll look for that, thank you. And then the suites, when you were talking about safety here on campus, I was down by the suites today, and I called campus police because there was a white pickup truck that parked, and the guy got out the truck and asked me if it was okay for him to park there, and I told him I didn't know. It's directly in front of the suites. I used to park there when I worked down in that area. And then he got out the car and he put a skull hat on and he had a big bag, and I asked him where was he headed. I thought maybe he could park on campus. He ignored me, and then he finally said down the way. So I watched him as he walked away. He walked towards the library, but I guess I was curious because my car was broken in two down there once, and this guy had the same type of bag that this guy had a crowbar inside of. So I called campus police, and they said, okay, and I said, well, can you please check it out? I took a picture of him. And I just said that to say that I probably won't hear anything else. So can we have maybe campus police to get back if we report something? I mean, it may not be anything, and then it may be something, just to let us know, hey, thanks, we followed up on your lead, and there was nothing to it or whatever, you know. Good. That's one thing I'd like to know. I would feel better that, okay?
Yeah, just campus police reports through student services, and I'll have Maurice take that up with Chief Dalton. I don't really know the answer to that question, but it seems very reasonable. I also want to compliment you because what you did is a good example of working to make our community safe and not seeing it simply as the job of security or the police. And if all of us have that attitude, we can make this a much safer campus. When we see something, say something.
Thank you, sir. And just the new major that we're having, the software major, I think that's wonderful. Is it communicated? I haven't seen it out there. Will we know as a whole that we have this new major out there? So.
Yes. Dr. Kenneth Gaucher is the division chair under which that major lies. And so brand new, but yes, it will be well advertised.
It is on the website. It's on the website.
other questions? It's hard for me to see because the lights. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Jatika Manigo, Alumni Engagement. Not a question, but a suggestion and idea. As I look around, there's a wealth of information in this room, and I wondered if perhaps what we can do is create a contest and see if someone has a great idea for saving the college money. Look at ways that something that you do, meaning I've noticed that on our requisitions, when I was here before, we had 3 parts. Now we only have 2 parts, and I'm sure that just eliminating 1 sheet of paper has saved us money. So perhaps what you can look at is creating a contest, and someone who comes up with the best idea over a year or 6 months comes up with the best idea where the campus can save money or make money. Perhaps they would win a gift card or something, a $500 card or something along those lines. The idea would be to encourage everyone to look at what they do in their jobs and see where can I save Morehouse money, and then submit the idea and see whoever has the best idea or whoever's idea generates the most revenue or saves the college the most money would win. That's my idea.
I think that's a fantastic idea, so I'm going to task our business and finance area to think about how we can execute on something like that, and even more broadly, how we do get our community engaged in helping us think about how we can control cost. And on the other side, possibilities for raising revenue. You got that, Gerald?
Thank you very much, colleagues, for a very impressive report. At points, very inspiring. My question is a practical question. I have 3 donors who have given to the chapel, 1 $50,000 and 2 $10,000. And the $50,000 donor has gotten in touch with me and has asked me to announce or to advertise that this gift came in, and this person said that she thought that if more people knew that she had given this gift, that it would inspire others to give. And so my simple question is, in light of the fact that that particular gift, the $50,000 one, was given, I think, about almost a year ago, what is your recommended approach for me, or who should I approach in the college to assist at getting this announced?
You want to take it?
Yeah.
Or you need to take it?
Dean
Because it
Carter's-
starts with me, but
Right.
go ahead.
So Monique and I have been working on some parameters on announcing at different levels, different donations. So I think, Dean, it would be a conversation with myself and then Monique, and we're trying to do them based on level as well as the donor, and getting different levels of announcements. So going from a press release all the way down to social media post or a blog post of some kind. It's something that she and I literally just authored last week. So it'd start with me, and then I'd bring in Monique.
Actually, it's the opposite. It starts with me, and we'll bring in Jose. Because part of it is the broader picture of stewardship. So what we're trying to do in conjunction with how we share beyond what the donor, sharing with the broader community what the donor has given, making sure that we're properly recognizing the donor for their generosity too. So there's a combination of pieces here, including re-engaging our stewardship program to be more effectively reporting all that. So it's a whole wheel. So I would say start with us, and we will bring them in. But what's going to be important is that we need to communicate when this plan is finalized and authored, that everybody knows when we will make a public announcement versus not. Because everybody wants their gift announced, and we appreciate that, but every gift is not necessarily newsworthy or should be announced.
And I qualify that. So there are things, let's say something comes in on Monday. I think the donors or people oftentimes want it announced immediately, but we have to sort of process them based on what other things are coming out of the college and what's happening overall in our space. So it may not go out until we find an opportune time. And I think those are the things we're going to negotiate with a donor.
Thank you very much. But I guess in light of Vice President Dozier, your comment about some gifts not being worthy, do you want to give us all an idea of the threshold?
So when I say new, they're all worthy of being acknowledged. The news will not always pick them up. So for obvious reasons, Robert was picked up by its size, but the news may not always pick up these other gifts. We have to have other vehicles for letting people know. So that's where Jose was saying social media. How do we put them into newsletters, et cetera? Because the news itself, I'm talking about CNN and AJC, they will not always pick up these stories. So that's what we're making sure that we're conscious of, that they're not newsworthy from there, but they are worthy of being recognized and acknowledged. Yes.
About in terms of sort of the strategic cuts that he might need to make in the summer or going forward, since he was not able to implement the furlough?
I've not arrived at any conclusions about that. What we will be engaged in is looking at just about every area of the college, and where we can, create more integration across various functions becomes a question. I'm also looking at, are there ways for us to do more in collaboration with our other AUC schools, where today we duplicate with each other almost every back office function. And there's cost that I think that can be taken out if we do more in an integrated way. But I don't want to telegraph anything now, because what I've learned being in this job is if I say I'm thinking about something, it goes out on the street that I'm doing it. So I don't want to give examples necessarily of where those things might be.
Any further questions? We have a few more minutes. Yep.
What's the plan for Giving Tuesday / National Giving Day?
It's an exhaustive plan. What is the plan for Giving Tuesday? So it's a combination of boots on the ground, social media, launches. We have ambassadors across the country that will be making calls. We have our students making calls. We will be doing a faculty and staff pitches we did last year, allowing people to support the college through payroll deduction. Every hour last year, for example, we gave some incentives for folks to give. We will also be having some of the national alumni chapters. We'll be doing things across the country. We just had a conversation today with the president of the National Alumni Association about how do we now post these to Facebook or show them live so that people can know these things are happening. So it's a very, 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 very big, exhaustive plan. I think we were up until 2 a.m., Jose and I, doing a last-ditch effort last year. All of OIA will be engaged if you'd like to be a part of this. Again, Josh, please stand. He's the one that's organizing and coordinating this, but we have text to give. So everything you can imagine on Giving Tuesday, Morehouse will be doing on Giving Tuesday.
Okay. Question, Andre?
Do you have a dashboard of progress indicators associated with the restructuring of the academic side of the house? For instance, we've seen this a number of times, and we're anxious about what to look forward to, what to look for. Assume you have something in place.
Well, certainly there are some things that we're going to be monitoring. One is the graduation rate, and so we want to achieve that 4-year 70% graduation rate. And so we're going to be looking critically at the performance of each of the divisions. Some of this still has to be flushed out. We've been working with Dozier Institutional Research in order to identify, what variables we should be looking at, how often we should be measuring them, and so it's going to take a little bit of time. Right now, we're into I think the 4th month or so of this new plan.
Okay, I think we've come to the end of the session. I don't see any hands. Well, first of all,
Doc, there's one hand in the back.
There's a question.
How you doing, Dr. Thomas, and the panel? We saw a lot of different numbers given to us in reference to what has been donated to the college and what has been anticipated us making in the college. But at the same time, I'm still hearing that there's possibilities, and you just made it clear that you're not saying absolutely what you're going to possibly do for next semester. But what are those, how much of those dollars are actual dollars versus dollars that are being saying that this is my plan to give?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll let Monique say something about this, but one thing that I think it's important for everyone to understand is that there's two kinds of dollars for the college that come into the college. There are restricted dollars, which is where the donor tells us what we have to spend the money on. So, for example, the Carnegie Mellon grant that we just got is for faculty development. What does that mean? That means that that's not money that I can spend to fix the pipe that burst under Du Bois, right? For that, we need unrestricted dollars. Those are dollars that are at the discretion of the college to use for anything and at any time that we want. The majority of what we've raised this year, for example, the Robert Smith gift, the Oprah gift, most of the other 6-figure and up gifts that we've raised were designated for specific purposes. So where we're crunched is on the unrestricted operating dollars needed to run the college and to invest in new initiatives. I'll let Monique answer the what percentage is pledged versus cash in.
Yeah, so by our accounting guidelines, we do not accept pledges for more than 5 years. So I say that to say to you that these are gifts that will come in 1 to 5 years. We do not stretch beyond 5 years. We are probably about a 60-40 kind of organization, meaning that 60% will be in the first couple of years, 40% will stretch out for those 5 years. But we do allow donors to give up to 5 years to make a pledge to the institution. I will also add to you that we just started taking pledges again because we were not taking pledges from donors, which we were basically chasing every year current use dollars. Because we are now getting them to commit over time, you're going to see an uptick in the cash available, i.e. restricted, because we've now got them to commit for a longer period versus that just 1 year, which is very important. Go ahead.
I suggest that in the process of when we're giving these type of reports, I think for us who's trying to assist the college to move forward in a more productive manner in the financial status, that those type of dynamics, because we possibly can have someone in here or someone you may know, they can go forth and say, look, we need money in this area.
Yep.
So for the operating costs of the institution, because I'm pretty sure some people looking at those numbers are saying, but wait a minute, they're kind of confused because we're saying, wait a minute, what, if we're having those numbers and that productivity that's coming across, why are we talking about anything else but furthering our success?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a good observation, Coach. And because there's another dynamic too there that people should understand, which is that much of our money, our money also comes in the form of an endowment, which means that the principal is there to last forever, and the money that we can spend comes off of what that gift generates as an investment, and there's a 5% limit on that. So you just take, for example, the Oprah Winfrey gift is for the Oprah Winfrey Scholars Program's endowment, which means that if today we were going to take that 5%, rather than Oprah Winfrey's gift making available to us immediately $13 million, it would be somewhere in the neighborhood of about $650,000. And the last thing I want to emphasize for anybody who's in some way engaged in trying to gain dollars, unrestricted dollars is where our current need is, and/or dollars that act like unrestricted dollars, and that's essentially what we call general scholarships, which means it's money given for scholarships, but we determine the timing of it and how it gets applied. I want to thank everybody for coming out, giving us your time, and hopefully what you've heard here today shows you that the college does have momentum. I also hope that it contributes to one of my goals that I talked about in convocation, which is to have us develop a culture of trust, transparency, and accountability. And part of our being up here today is part of our wanting to hold ourselves accountable to you and to be as transparent as we can be. And hopefully that's reciprocated with your trust that the leadership of the college is trying to work consistently and constantly in the best interest of the college. So thank you all for coming out. And let me say happy Thanksgiving.